All right, so it being on or about 7 o'clock on Thursday, May 2nd, I'll call this meeting of the Tufts Farm Master Plan to order. I guess just a little introduction. Tufts Farm is a Conservation Commission-owned property in Easton, and we have Martha and Mary here from the Conway School in Northampton, Massachusetts, and we kind of worked out kind of a contract with them to come up with a master plan for the property as part of finishing up your kind of like a capstone project for you guys, if you will, right? Yeah. And we're looking to get input from the public on what folks would like to see done with the property, because there's, at least I think in all our view, some potential for several different good uses. So I'll turn it over to you guys, because I know you have a presentation to run through, and we'll go from there.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for being here. We just have a couple quick slides, not a thorough presentation, because mostly we want to hear from you, so it's less about us talking tonight. But let's see. I'm Martha.
Mary Sage.
And we're graduate students at the Conway School. So this is our final project for a Master's of Science in Ecological Design.
So you guys probably already generally understand what a master plan is, but in terms of what we're doing for Tufts Farm is we're kind of trying to come up with a comprehensive land use plan that is designed to be used to guide the future of this property, particularly because it's a town-owned property, so that we can have, the town can have a plan that can kind of inform the way that the property is going to be used moving forward. So some of the questions we're trying to answer from you all today is to just get an idea about what Easton's vision for Tufts Farm is, how Tufts Farm can best serve the people of Easton, and also maybe some ideas about some of the more specific concerns or interests you may have about the ecological health of the land and the historical importance of the place. And so we are going to go through a couple of activities and conversations today so that we can get some information from you that can really help us inform and articulate the goals that we use to create the master plan.
So we see this project as balancing sort of three themes. One is that this is a historic site with historic significance to the town. It's also an active farm, and it has been for over 100 years. And it also has ecological importance with numerous wetlands and connectivity to the greater Flyaway Pond. So a little history of Tufts Farm, which I'm sure you might know better than I do, but we just spent a couple hours at the Historic Society today. So farm dating back to the early 1800s, and some of that farm history involves flowers and vegetables, as well as turkeys, maybe dairy cows at one point. Also, it was tenement housing, and then since the 80s has been owned by the town of Easton, and Michael Luke has been there for the last 10 years stewarding the land. So we're kind of thinking about that history as we move forward. As we said today, habited by Michael and Mary Luke. And the way the farm looks right now is in open fields. The old orchard has been left open. There's a beautiful oak tree. There's a really great emergent wetland kind of right near the house, as well as ponds, and then connectivity to the Flyaway Pond.
So this map is just to kind of give you an idea of what the farm looks like today. And in terms of the bigger context, as many of you might know, it is connected to the Flyaway Pond Conservation Area. So there's a series of trails that's running through Flyaway Pond that come onto the parcel that the two farm fields are a part of. And we have heard that there is some interest in finding a way that the Tufts Farm property could be connected to those paths within Flyaway Pond. And so one of the things that we're looking into is how that connection can happen, and also if there's interest in Tufts Farm becoming an additional access point to those Flyaway Pond trails. So in terms of our agenda for today, we have a short survey that we're asking everybody fill out that can just kind of get your mind working about your own personal vision for the farm. And then I think because there's not a ton of us, instead of doing that sort of medium-sized group activity. Once we've completed our survey, we're just going to sort of start to open the room up for a bigger conversation. We can just have a discussion. We're going to take some notes, and we can see if there's any common themes that can start to help us articulate goals, and also see if anybody has any concerns in particular. So just to get us started, I have a short survey here that can kind of just help us get an idea of how each of you would like to see Tufts Farm use. If you think that there's a particular niche that this property could fill for Easton. And then once you guys have finished with that, oh yeah, I also wanted to note that there's a map on the back. So if there's anything that's easier to say in drawing than it is in writing, you're welcome to use the map as well. And once we've finished with that, then we'll open up the meeting to a discussion, okay?
Sounds good.
So I'll pass here. Do you want to pass some out over here?
Put my crayons away.
Go by this. That's great. You seen it? It looks like it's more
That's great. Good idea.
like bigger tracks.
Perfect.
Plan. Looks really.
You need a
I
pen?
know I'm sorry to make you write on your laps. You guys are also
Yeah.
welcome to pull up
Oh,
For
the
you?
table if that's a little bit easier.
Just in case, if there's anything you want to point out, you know it better than anyone else.
We want to hear your side too.
You are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I think if everyone wants this.
Much easier.
Did you get a sheet too?
All right, thank you.
Oh, we can still do that.
Yeah, there's people
Yeah.
in here that are really interesting.
When we open up the conversation, maybe we'll have
Yeah,
them
Jordan
introduce
can
themselves
say.
first. Yeah.
That would be helpful. I'm just going to get out my notebook.
Yeah. All right, it looks like everybody's starting to wrap up. So don't worry if you didn't get everything down. There'll be plenty of time to chat, and you can keep writing if you need to. But before we get started, would you guys mind if we just went around and everybody introduced themselves? Because I forgot to do that at the beginning.
Just take the microphone for.
Oh,
yeah.
sure. This?
Yep, it's wireless.
Well, you need a mic.
Do I have to turn it on?
It's already on.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carol Lundeen. I live over on Western Ave.
Great, thank you for coming.
We just need these, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hi. Bill Humphrey, member of the Easton Conservation Commission.
Michael Goodman, Vice Chair, Conservation.
Stefan Caltino, Chairman of the Conservation Commission.
Rory Caulfield's a member of the Easton Conservation Commission.
Mike Luke, I live at Tufts Farm.
Dave Wallace, resident at large.
Andrea Langhauser, Easton Environmental Planner.
Dottie Fulgenetti, Chair of the Board of Selectmen and a neighbor.
Tim Hurley, Chair of the Historic Commission.
Great, thank you so much for coming. So I think to start on a positive note, if we just sort of work through using this survey as sort of a guiding document to help us work out some of our ideas, I would love to hear from any or all of you about what we see currently as the assets that Tufts Farm has and things that we would like to see protected about Tufts Farm, maybe things that we would not like to see change, or things maybe that even could be supported as the assets of the farm. Is there anybody who would like to start? Yeah.
The oak tree in the open field.
Great, we love that oak tree. We love that oak tree.
That's it. Okay. You named it that, that's what it's gonna be called.
The
So
tree of life.
be careful, we're gonna pick a name for it and that's it.
I mean, look at the size of it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yes, it
It's
does.
amazing, and we did try to figure out, we tried to
We
age
measured it.
We measured the circumference, and based on the information we can find, it looks like that tree could be as old as 360 years old. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Oaks are slow growers, yeah.
Yeah, and it could have another 300 or more years in it.
Because we
That's
first
amazing.
moved there, where the goats are, it was all just brush.
Yeah.
And it was like, don't do anything with that tree in the back. It's fine.
Yeah.
So we cleared all the brush, and Stephanie came up, and she, just before you entered, she said, what'd you do with that tree? Nothing, Stephanie, still in the backfield where it was, but you couldn't see it from the house. It
Right.
was so overgrown.
Right.
Right.
She thought I took the tree down.
Oh, goodness.
It's like, no, Stephanie, it's right there, trust me.
Yeah, just go walk to the other side of the wall. You'll see
Yeah,
it.
go to the other field, it's over there.
Yeah, we promise.
Oh, hello.
So that's a great asset. So I think that there's a lot of consensus around our love for that tree. Yeah.
Hi. I've met out there many times with
Yeah.
Andrea and also Mike. And what we,
Hey, Wayne.
obviously things that need to be done is the old coop
Do you need a
needs to
pen?
be taken down. It's all caving in on itself.
Uh-huh.
But also working in the field of development, et cetera.
Yep.
I think we came up with a nice plan, and if you drive into the property,
Yep.
there's this open space, there's a couple ratty trees that could come down, and there could be plenty of parking set right up there to the immediate left. And with that, possibly a couple things will happen. Obviously, people will park could come there to see how a small working farm
Yeah.
is operated. But also, I don't know if he'd be interested, we just bounce this off him. There was a farm stand there at one time. That would be really
Yeah.
special.
That's a great idea.
Well, there's a small stand there now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Mike. Yeah, that we talked about.
Behind that
Yep.
is where we were talking. Remember when you guys came up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Talked about the parking
Yeah,
spot?
you
Yeah.
did point that area out
That's
to
what
us.
Bill's talking
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, I think that's a
And
great idea.
there's a couple trees that aren't old there, the one we talked about that would have to be moved. It's not a special tree in any type, but,
Right.
but when the barn, chicken coop, whatever you want to call it, comes down, not only does that need to be raised, but then grading should be done properly around there for drainage, et cetera. So I've been out there, again, many times to go over what needs to be done, and
Yeah.
I want to be involved in that because I can really help the town
Yeah.
save money and go over that with direct. I'll be out there watching it as it goes.
They'll
and
be out there with a
instructing.
shovel.
Yeah, no, not me anymore. Those days are gone. I have soft hands.
Is there a date for that kennel to come down?
I
Do you
I
know?
was hoping there was, but I was talking with DPW on that.
DPW 4.
Bringing down the
kennel
kennel.
coming down.
So, yeah, we had a bit of confusion between, they're not available on weekends, but they can get to it, they can't commit to getting to it. And so the question is whether or not I bite the bullet and write the awful contracts needed to go to private or wait.
Well, it's just the money spent, they have to rent equipment.
The money has been authorized by the Conservation Commission to
Okay.
remove this.
And then obviously a demo permit has to be pulled.
And that I need either.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah,
We might be getting a little too into the weeds on that one specific thing, though.
Pardon?
We might be getting a little too into the weeds on that one specific item. We can say that for.
Oh, yeah, but
Yeah, but I mean, it will be, so then that kennel we know is coming down.
Right.
And then there will be a big open, very flat space where it sounds like maybe are there drainage problems that you know of there?
no, it's very rocky soil up in that area. Yeah, yeah. But there does need to be, Mark Trivet, the building inspector, will note, this is a law a lot of people don't know, but you have to have what's called a competent rated person on any job that there's heavy equipment. Like Lopes, they have a competent person. That person is in charge of looking at the job site, the equipment before it starts in the morning, and giving his thumbs up on doing that. A lot of people, I'd say 99.9% of people don't know that.
Yeah, sure.
So we have
So you-
we do have 3 bids on that. So
Okay,
it's-
but you make sure they have to go to OSHA training. That's what I had to do for a week and get all that stuff done, just in case anything ever happened and something you never expect happen.
So I haven't been down to the farm in a while, but one of the things that I remember that I really liked about it is that you had mules, which is very unusual, and it was the first time I ever saw a mule. So I really liked the idea that there was interesting animals there, and I liked the setup of that. I think that there should be better signage and maybe historical small signs. Like if there was, if you wanted to lead somebody around the property, then have a way to go connect it by signage that talks about,
Yeah.
you know, here's the historic aspect of this, here's the historic tree, and that could kind of guide you around the property.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the property was open to the public,
Right.
so I don't know if people realize that, and if it is, where do you park, what are the hours, things like that would be important.
That's what we're working on.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the property right now, it's too dangerous.
Right, but when it is developed, that would be important to let people know, because people drive by it and don't even really pay attention and understand it's a farm. I think a U-pick area would be really great. You had that in your notes, but I didn't read down that far. And maybe some more opportunities for volunteer work for people that may want to come and, you know, help do some of the work, whether it's gardening or feeding animals or caring for animals. So.
That's a great point.
Well, you were speaking of assets. I think one of the things that Bill initially mentioned, and that we noticed upon arrival of our site visit, was the ease of parking, and even just the way that it sits right now, there's plenty of off-street parking. And when I say plenty, it's relative, but speaking to some of our other properties in town that we, the Conservation Commission, own, a lot of them don't have any parking or any off-street parking, so you know, some people, you can't get out and enjoy some of these places like Monty's and the farm up there and various other places. Everybody thinks of, you know, the town, but even think about the town forest over on Randall Street. There's no parking there. If you wanted to access, you know, Clifford Grant from there instead of the school, there's nowhere to do it. And here, without, you know, any site work of any kind or bothering the DPW, because they are busy with lots of stuff, we've got parking already. So I think that's a really good asset that we should you know, try to take as much advantage of as we can. And again, the ground is already, most of the prep is done.
Yeah, there are several areas that we could implement parking depending on how much we wanted to.
You know, so that's
relatively easy.
That's a good thing.
But I think so Mike being a operating farm with animals, he's going to have trucks going in and out of there. And most trucks that you deal with, they don't say they're going to be there at 8:15. They say they'll be there in the morning. So you can't have a bunch of people parked in the way, especially on that, with an 18-wheeler on that corner.
I don't want to pull into my driveway and the driveway is blocked up and I can't.
I think.
That's why I thought that pocket spot.
I guess to get a little more specific, so there's an access road to the Ames Gun Club just off of the farm.
Right.
And there's, exactly. And there are several spots along there that would be great for putting some parking in, for access both to the front of the farm and to the back fields.
Right. And so it sounds like, I mean, one thing we've been talking about is that there's also this need to balance the needs and the desires of the public and then your needs as a dweller of the property, and to be able to get into your own driveway when you need to and get out of your own driveway.
I mean, I've come home and it's like, I just want to bring my beer case out and see it go. It's like, okay, well, I get my driveway.
Yes, right.
Which
so,
is fine. I mean, I don't
of
mind.
course, because
it's
you're
fine.
a nice person.
Making sure there's proper signage, kind of like there's the tenant house at Sheep Pasture, and there's that access road to it, and the signs are, you know, this is private property.
Can I bring my beer case to see it go? Sure, come on,
Right.
let's go.
Yeah.
Right, so
And
it's,
it'd be nice if they could get off the street, because it's a bad corner.
It is.
yeah, that worried me a little bit too, that corner. But so, I mean, it's wonderful to hear that you're so welcoming to people coming by, but maybe creating some definition between the tenant space and the public
So we're not
space.
disrupting Mike and that.
Yeah.
You gotta have your space.
Right.
I think that also that, you know, Flyway Pond is this large conservation area that really is underutilized because there isn't a great deal of access.
We realized that last
We
week
tried to find it.
had to hunt down the
Turned around.
access to
Yeah.
Flyway, and it took us a minute.
Couldn't find it.
We did eventually.
Do is walk out the back field.
Well, we did
That way,
that.
yeah, we did find it that
We
way.
had to find the one that was on the map.
Anyway, weekend 3 years ago, I looked and said, why don't I see the mules?
Oh.
And I walked out front, and there was a cop car in the front yard. He says, are you missing a horse-like thing? I said, yeah, why? He says, up on Lincoln Street. It's okay, so I went up there.
Decided to go on walkabout.
It's like, you get up here, you bring
Horse
me
like
home.
thing.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
we went down through the woods, and there's a little bridge
Yeah.
down, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, where the old dam broke down.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
tried to walk over that and to bring the mule through the water. No, we're not doing that. You'll go through the water with
Oh
me.
my God.
And we went right out to the backfield.
You're talking about that broken down bridge you were gonna go across.
She knew exactly how to get there.
Right.
Nice.
So it does start to seem like Tufts Farm is at least as much of an intuitive entry point to that area as its designated
Existing.
entry point at this time.
You know what I'd also like to see, not
Yeah.
to interrupt, but you've got a historical house there, beautiful, and you're going to have, hopefully, being a working farm, we'll have a parking spot where people can go.
Right.
And obviously, he's living in the house because he's taking care of all of this. But definitely, if there's got to be some type of fencing put up to keep the public from trying to get into his home, or with signage, obviously. Because there are areas that are dangerous till they get cleaned
Right.
up. So even though you get the parking, get it up and working, there are those other barns that still need to be updated. They're dangerous.
Sure.
Well, yeah, I guess also, making sure that the working area of the farm that's, your access only is is at least well defined from the public access. Because I know the way you were talking about rotating areas of the field, it could be good, in between those could be good pedestrian access to the oak tree and the backfields and that kind of thing. So making sure that if something like that is desirable, that you have your space.
The fences up and that. I mean, I would be more, instead of just people showing up, like 2 Sundays a month or something, having an open house.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of just, it's like, okay, I'm walking over here, I got shocked by your electric fence, now
Right.
I'm suing you. You know, I'd rather do something like that, like 2 Sundays a month or whatever, instead of just people wandering around and getting, like I said, getting shocked by the electric fence. They
Yeah.
don't know where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. Sure. Well, so I guess to that point, and just a discussion item. Talking about those aisles for access to the back area.
Right.
If you've been to Crescent Ridge, they have their animals with an electric fence, and then a few feet off of that, there's like a white vinyl, picket fence kind of thing. So that way, there could be access to cut through the working farm, but also not have the risk of somebody shocking themselves.
Right, because there's those two
Pulse is at
interests.
5,000 volts.
Yeah.
That is
That'll
pretty
tickle.
cool,
It'll
though.
wake you right up.
Yeah.
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 Stefan,
Yeah.
The last thing you need is some little kid grabbing a hold of it.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Stefan,
But I mean,
that's
now
awesome
you're
over
talking
there.
about putting
Yeah.
like 3 different fences.
Still touch the animals.
Right, but so I
yeah.
think kind of what we're getting at is there's also the separation between the ways that people will be interacting with the farm itself and then the times that people are passing through to get onto those trails, and that perhaps there could be some way to delineate just the access point, and then maybe something like you're talking about, like times when people are coming to actually see the animals and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yes.
We used to trick the kids all the time. Shut the fence on. Hey, go ahead and grab that.
So to this, I would like to add, what about the possibilities of bathrooms and trash cans?
Oh.
Great point.
Those are both very helpful things. Thank you. All right. So those of you in the back that came a bit later, we're just kind of having an open discussion about some of the topics that we covered in that survey. If anybody has anything that they would like to add. Let me look through this a little bit. So we've mostly been trying to talk about what we see as the existing assets of the farm, looking into what we would like to see maintained in a master plan. I'm wondering if there's anything else that, we've been looking into some of the open spaces, parks, publicly accessible farms in the area that maybe we could take some cues from. So if anybody, and that was sort of why we set up that sponge activity out there. Also, we're just wondering if anybody has like, sometimes it's easier to point to some examples or precedents of places that you think are doing it really well, that you think Tufts Farm could take an example from. If anybody has anything like that they would want to steer us to.
I guess I'd have to ask the audience for help, Ross. What is the house up the street behind the wrought iron, next to Queesit? So next to Hoe Shop.
Next to the Hoe Shop?
Yeah, behind the wrought iron.
Oh, you're talking about the former William Embry Parker, Victorian, beautiful Victorian?
Yeah, the big
Yes.
Victorian, yeah.
So like those gardens there, how the different areas are delineated, everything is together, but each area sort of segues, so you can go from looking at the flowers up against the wrought iron and the stone wall, which is beautiful, and then that sort of segues over to some different types of bushes and again, the prominent tree that's in front and how the areas, everything is together, but it's kind of, in the way that it's laid out, it's separate so that, you can be over in that part and they can be over there, and, something like that would be nice to integrate with the tree, to segue over to, like, where Mike rotates the goats in that area, so that way, you're satisfying a lot of needs from your watchers and your people with kids who want to interact with the goats and things like that, and then people who just want some peace and tranquility. It's kind of, you can make something for everybody in a small area just by means of walkways and various different types of plantings.
Are you talking about Paul Weiss's house?
No, the yellow Victorian right here.
What?
The house right here.
Is it on North Main?
I guess it's
North Main?
I guess it's a per person or per property consideration as well, because you have some people, they wouldn't mind people walking through parts of their property. There are some people who are very covetous and protective of their property. But I also understand you may want to establish something that would be some sort of an umbrella policy that would work and be protective no matter who owned their houses. Now, I'm not educated too much on it, but isn't there some sort of ordinance, or that communities wanted to pass this, or it could be a federal ordinance, in which property owners would be protected if they were contiguous to conservation land, and people may have drifted into their land on the way and something happened? I don't know. I read Richard Louve's book, Last Child in the Woods.
Oh, sure.
And I was fascinated by that because it's something that arises in communities all over the nation. So I was just, like I said, I'm not too educated on it. So
I think Andrea might have something to say.
Yeah, we don't know.
Massachusetts does have a limited liability statute where if the public is invited onto the property, as long as the property is being reasonably maintained, then there is a the ability. So we should include that in any work we do.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
Limited.
I think it's 2 million it's up to now, allowable.
It is.
As far as other references, when we met in the field, we had discussed how sheep pasture does some things really well. I'd just driven by the Newton Community Farm the other day, and it caught my eye. I haven't looked into it too much yet, but quick look at their website. Sounds like they work a lot of sustainable, environmentally friendly farming practices, education, and that kind of thing into the curriculum. And it looked different than let's say public gardens, community gardens, where there are smaller plots that people work on themselves, and it was bigger tracts of land, but it's still a community farm. So it seemed like that could be something interesting to look at.
And we went and visited sheep pasture, and I think one of the things that they do really well is that when you pull in, you're not, at least when we pulled in, you're not in the part of the farm that's for the public engagement, but they make it really clear where you're supposed to go.
True.
So even though, you might feel like you're pulling in somewhere that you don't really know where you're going, I think that's a really good example for kind of just like guiding user experience.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think they also do a nice job with their educational signage, as far as giving information on wetlands and species and that kind of thing.
Yeah, because that's another thing that particularly the bigger parcel that the two farm fields are a part of. There are huge wetlands back there that it is in our interest, and of course in the interest of the Conservation Commission, to protect those assets as well. And so, making sure that, our plans take that into consideration as well.
Yeah, they could also, potentially present, good educational, interaction with, hey, here's what a real, big wetland looks like, and here are some things to look out for, and that kind of thing.
What was it about Crescent Dairy that you?
It was the way they used a series of fences to separate the farm animals from like the ice cream eating areas. If you want to make ice cream too, I wouldn't complain. But they basically.
Sandwich with his farm, I'm gonna have to give up.
Well, yeah.
Well, the good news is there's so much land that the Conservation Commission owns adjacent here. that-
Well, I think that gets to, what do you see long-term for farming use and plannage on the areas? That's going to be real important to incorporate into
Right.
developing this.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like Mike was saying about, the big tree and gardens and everything else, so, I mean, how much of that field am I gonna have to give up? I only have so many fields,
Right.
and I understand what you're saying, yes, it's nice, but, how much am I gonna have to give up?
Sure.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, the town of Easton's, I'd love to have them do this, but I mean, it's like, how much am I gonna, am I gonna get cut in half? And, now I'm gonna lose a lot of everything?
So I guess of the open fields, how much of the open fields do you currently use?
Well, the back part, I cut hay in one.
Right,
and
definitely.
Put animals out there.
Yep.
Yeah, the
And
animals.
the other field, which is,
We can go to
The one around the oak tree?
yes,
Yep.
that's where I had the cows and the mules.
Uh-huh.
And the goats are in the other part.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We were talking about maybe an orchard or berries or something, and I
Yeah.
could switch. And I wanna grow
Yeah,
flowers,
sure.
and I asked you guys about lavender.
Right,
which you guys,
right. Yeah, we just sent in our soil tests, so we're gonna, we'll find out,
It
but,
goes down right over here. Because when I was cutting the hay over at Estes, there's lavender growing there.
It depends on the ground temperature,
Yeah.
the sunlight in that area is so much.
but that's why we're here, we're doing so much analysis, you'll
Right.
get your mind blown.
That's why I wanted to get the opinion of the garden club. There's a lot of knowledgeable ladies there who know, this is their town, they know what grows, they have that
Yeah.
knowledge, and they,
My grandmother taught her how to do flowers.
I think one thing that was mentioned was rotating fields too.
Yeah, yeah,
So that way the grass can grow back
Right.
where
right.
the animals
yeah, and I
are
don't,
there.
Yeah, and I think just eyeballing it, I would imagine we should be able to manage pedestrian access, some U-pick, and maybe like some picnic area by the field, without taking up too much of the actual open field
Yeah.
up, so that it can be utilized
Yeah.
for farming, because that's a huge value of the farm itself, is that it is a working farm.
Yeah.
Did anybody else have any other references or
Brookwood Community Farm in Canton.
Great. And what do you like about that?
It's a good example. Hi, so Brookwood Community Farm in Canton is at the foot of the Blue Hills. It's owned by the state, I believe, under a long-term lease, and it was in very poor condition. And over the years, the landscape and the buildings have been restored in a really interesting way. There's some good public engagement there. They're at a lot of farmers markets. So they've been picking away at the buildings and restoring them over time, and it's an interesting example of a renovation project at a publicly owned farm that still has a lot of private use as well.
That's great. Yeah, we love a good precedent.
Did you see the house? Have you been up there?
At Brookwood?
Yes.
It's the last
The
thing.
mansion. He is the #1 dishwasher ever made. Oh. It's in the house.
I thought I was the #1 dishwasher.
like that.
It is, it's right in the house. I saw it. It's the first dishwasher ever made.
I believe, and Wayne, you can help me on this, that house qualifies for National Register, I believe. So we want to be very conscious of the house. I'm not so sure what the historic value of any of the outbuildings are. Mike, are those? I know, Bill, you and I looked at them.
I think the kennel is the only one.
Yeah, the kennel which we're giving up. is gone.
Yeah, the other ones were, one of them was CBC Construction, and the other one is, which is when you drive in the driveway, the one you run right into. That's a really nice, that's a pretty cool
Yeah,
building right
so-
there.
They do have some historic value from the 1930s, and I think being attentive to the structures and the historic and heritage landscape
Yep.
that's evolved over time from the 1800s and into the 1930s and 40s would be
So along with Mike's privacy, we want to make sure we buffer a good portion of that, so that, you know, that, and, go ahead, Russ.
A public works project built one of those buildings or more during the Depression?
Oh, do you know?
Okay.
I do not know.
Okay, so the night. Oh, I thought, okay. I don't know why I thought that, but I don't know why I think a lot of things.
Another good local example of something that works really well is, and it's low budget, is Woodslow Farm down in Norton. They do a little bit of rescue animal stuff. Yeah, it's on John Birch, the backside of the industrial park.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they do. They have a Halloween thing, but they have rescue animals. So the animals change, and they have kids come in, and they do, you know, kind of like Stefan was saying. They sort of, the signage sort of guides you, but there's a lot of hands-on for the kids, hands-on activities, hands-on feeding the animals. Again, it's different animals because they have rescue animals in various different stages of, you know, their therapies and their, you know, their recovery. So, you know, it's always interesting and it's always different. And, you know, that's something that taking, you know, what we're saying about getting various volunteers and stuff and doing it, it's not big money or big tech, but it's easy and it works.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I'm not sure I need this.
It's for the video.
Just for
We're-
the-
we're on-
yeah, it's
we're
for
on
the-
that.
Okay. I am not knowledgeable about previous discussions in town about having a dog park, but now that I have a dog and I chat with other dog owners, I know that there's a demand for a dog park, and I know that there's a demand by non-dog owners who are threatened by loose dogs at, you know, the governor's estate and other open fields in town. So I wonder if this might be an opportunity to pursue a dog park situation. I know the Randolph Dog Park is about my favorite. I mean, I drive all the way from Northeastern to Randolph to go to a dog park.
Yeah.
It's a spectacular park. And the one in Sharon is about equidistant. So there's two somewhat nearby, but this might be an opportunity to help
Good point.
a lot of people.
That's an interesting point. Thank you. I wanted to ask, maybe Andrea, you know this, is there a requirement for how, like, I know that there's an expectation that the land be kept in some agricultural production, or Michael, maybe you know this. Is there some kind of threshold that's based off of, like a certain amount of agricultural production per year, or a certain amount of the land that needs to be cultivated, or is it sort of just like a vague expectation?
When you speak in terms of those quantities, this land is not in a Chapter 61
Okay.
tax
Yeah.
situation. It's owned by the town. So
Right.
so there isn't a requirement for a certain amount. The deed is generic.
Okay.
You've had a chance to see the deed. It's keeping it in a as I recall, it's the activity of farming, and having a caretaker, I think, is actually part of the deed reference as well.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else remembers it more specifically than that. It's a generic, flexible standard, but
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure there wasn't some kind of, you know, criteria that it needed to be meeting that we had missed.
One thing that I think that this farm offers us that a lot of farms might not is the ability to both balance the use of the farm fields for grazing and for mowing hay, and also looking at it for wildlife potential, because there's a lot less grassland available for the birds. And when we're on Wheaton Farm, we have the lease there. We require that the mowing get done at a certain period of time to allow for the breeding of the birds and the fledgling of the birds first. So I don't know if that would work into your farm aspect or not, or if that's something we can talk about later on. Gotta look after those that can't speak for themselves.
Yes, we love that. And we did actually find in the analysis that we've been doing that Tufts Farm and all of Flyaway Pond fall within what is considered critical natural landscape. So that's a swath of intact landscape that's considered particularly important for ecological processes and as wildlife habitat. So that is a really good point to make. And Tufts Farm kind of lies like just right on the outer edge of that. But the fields are within that. So that's a really good, important point. Yeah.
Great.
I think the good news is everybody all the public, the junkies.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's talking about it as a farm.
Yes.
Right.
That's really nice. Nice validation.
I agree.
Well, there's the one, and there's also the one other, when we were out in the field that we talked about that I'd like to see come to fruition too, because a lot of this stuff is, let's face it, a lot of this stuff is work for Mike, who's over there. It is a farm and he's working, but we had spoke about the area going from the lowland to the upper pasture. There's a beautiful hickory forest up there, and he was talking about perhaps, raising pigs,
Right.
because it'd be, they would love it. They would maintain that patch of woods, if you will. They'd take care of all the all the fallen sticks would be maintained, or they'd make them disappear, and it'd also give them a viable product to get some revenue. And also, again, it's more to what Dottie spoke of. It's more interactivity with animals for kids and visitors, because people love that stuff, and that kind of, you just don't get many opportunities to get interactivity with live animals. Let's face it.
Yeah.
A lot of towns were fortunate to have the things we have here. So that'd be kind of a win-win-win for everybody, both for conservation, but also for Mike and for the local, for the community,
And for
the
the
kids,
pigs.
and for the pigs.
They would love it.
We're gonna get a buffet. That's right. They love the.
That's a gorgeous space there.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I actually, one last thing on like what we could do here is when we talked about it in the field when we were out there is maybe around the oak tree, just figuring out some way to incorporate some nature play space. 'Cause when I brought my son out there, the first thing he did was go and climb the rocks and go right along the rock wall.
What a kid does.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Is that Picker Field, the field on the left? No, that's not Picker. Is Picker still around?
Further this way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still there. It's still there.
Field anymore. Well, it's in, I was about to say.
Poison ivy patch.
Yeah, it's a poison ivy field.
What is all this that you have outlined?
Outlined is the Tufts Farm parcel and then the parcel that includes the 2 farm fields.
It was on something that was 15 acres, but it's not 15 acres.
13 acres. I think the Tufts Farm parcel itself is about 3, and then the back parcel is about
Right,
10.
but there's like 7.5 acres all total that, when we went there, that's what they said. But then I saw something like 15 acres, it's like, where's the other 8?
Yeah, the math is, we're not necessarily following assessor's law.
Right, so the rest
Yeah.
of it's woods, obviously.
Yes.
What I mean.
Yeah.
And
but
so
like-
that's kind of, I'm happy that you mentioned that, because that's kind of this piece of it that we've been juggling as well, is that the 2 agricultural fields are a part of this larger parcel. But it seems to me that in terms of the working farm, it's really just the fields and the path that you take to get there or bring your
Right,
tractor.
The back road that we
Right,
went out that
yeah,
day,
yeah. And so then the remainder is the wetlands and the woods that are technically a part of that parcel. But as far as I can understand, the intention is for those to just remain intact as they are.
Mike, are you working within those 3 acres?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, no, I'm in the field set.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could see them.
15 acres, like, where's the rest of it?
Yeah. I could see them being used for like for trails, that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't think we hadn't discussed like clearing or anything like that.
Yeah.
So the one that says open field over on the left,
Yep.
that's, we could do a way to fly away from there. That's what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, the
hayfield
yeah,
with
the
that
like the
open
bottom
area.
left-hand corner of that open
well,
field,
it's
kind
a
of.
little bit low, but
Yeah.
he can do something. And
Yeah, there is an existing trail that one of the Eagle Scouts in town kind of mapped out and marked that basically kind of touches on there and then swings back around towards the Picker Pond area.
Right.
And so that, we could potentially incorporate some more trails that could, I don't know, potentially go around the open field or into the other areas of the woods. Because it looks like there's some nice, there's some nice contours in there, which is always nice
Yeah.
There was a
for
road
trails.
at one time that went from what is the Gun Club Road,
Mm-hmm.
that goes right to the dam.
Yeah, we could see that, yeah.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Is it the one that's off at the very top of the map?
It's almost where the line on the map is.
Yeah, you can see it on there.
so it's almost the gate of the gun club,
No, not that far up. It's
in between, obviously.
probably 100 yards off the road,
Mm-hmm.
off campus.
Okay.
Off the road.
Yeah.
So is it,
No.
because if you look in the left-hand side in the woods, you can see the old fence that Tufts had. So it's probably just beyond that.
It's probably 60 yards in from the
Okay.
fence. It's almost on that property line marking right now.
Okay. That's interesting. Great.
I know the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts do work out there through the gun club.
Okay.
Yeah, the chair for the gun club would know that if you wanted to talk with him.
Yeah,
He used to be on the board, the Concom board.
Great.
I don't know his name yet.
He's I believe he's an attorney, but he was on the board years ago, and real nice guy. But yeah, the Girl Scouts go out and do things there, and the Boy Scouts do both, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, mentioning them, we've had quite a few Eagle Scout projects on conservation land over the past few years, and, could potentially incorporate some of getting to the master plan vision through Eagle Scout projects as a way of incrementally getting to our end goal. Because it's not all going to happen overnight.
Right.
So if
That's
you need
great.
help, be thinking about those projects
So
because,
you're gonna show up when?
no, the real help.
Real help.
Oh, not just this is what we should do?
There's a new flock of Eagle Scout candidates.
Oh,
So I
that's
can
great.
have
I'm beginning
them,
to-
I'm
I'm
gonna
beginning
put the
to
kettle
hear
down if
from
you guys don't do it.
Yeah.
The people who actually get work done.
Eagle Scouts get work done. That's
Eagle
what we need
Scouts
more
get
than-
work
There
done.
was some, I did. I'll have to figure it out.
Think
There was something I
about
was
it.
gonna ask you about for an Eagle Scout.
Yeah, think about
Yeah,
it.
think about it. They're always looking for projects.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like.
Yeah, they're very active.
Nice to have.
Yeah.
We talked about volunteers
They
and.
do a search online of famous Eagle Scouts, and the names are incredible.
They are.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
These corporations, athletes, and astronauts. It's incredible.
So before they do that, they'll help over at Tufts Farm a little.
Yeah.
That's great.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Going back to the bit about adding signage, I wonder what the town does as far as reminding folks who are entering wild areas about the risks of tick bites and tick-borne illnesses.
That's a good point.
I've been wondering about that. That is a hazard, certainly. Is
Yeah, I
there
don't
any
know. Do we
examples
have
around
much?
town?
The Board of Health has nice little palm cards that we can put out and make available outside of town hall that show the real size of the individual types of ticks. But other than that, it's the web.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it could be a part of our recommendations in a master plan that type of signage be included because I mean, that is definitely a big concern.
And I know other towns have started to have more
There's
signage.
certainly precedence for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I've seen it too.
Yeah.
Trails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep people.
Right, and
away
maintenance
from-
regimes and that kind of thing. Yeah, definitely. But that's a good point, and I think that those are the types of things that as we narrow in on plans, we're going to have to think a little more specifically about what that means for people coming into a space. And
That's a very real comment, because I hear from folks a lot saying, yeah, I have woods in my backyard, but I don't let my kids go there because of the ticks. And, you know, there's other ways to protect yourself from ticks.
Chickens love ticks. He's got those, yeah.
Guinea fowl.
So do they get like tick patrol badges we can?
I've never had a tick on me since I've done that.
That's awesome.
That's good to know. Yeah,
Never.
that's great.
Always gotta check yourself.
Yeah.
Before
Like
you
I
wreck
said, Ross,
yourself.
never happened. But you get chickens.
Yeah, the chickens.
And I had turkeys.
Sure. Yeah, the turkeys love them too.
Any other ideas, input, thoughts?
Yeah, Wayne.
Another example to look into might be Land's Sake in Weston.
Okay.
There's the fellow who ran that for a while wrote a book called Common Ground, which is pretty interesting. I'm thinking of, is there a way that some of the work that needs to be done could be done as a community event? Something that they did in Weston is they had a field that had been overgrown and encroached upon, similar to some of these fields here. So they did a big, pushing it back to the boundaries, clearing it, and then they had a informal community bonfire. In a reasonably safe way. But it was a pretty interesting way to, get a lot of people involved in the landscape and restoring it.
Can't park on
Good
that
idea.
road, it's
That's a
dangerous.
great idea.
Thanks, Wayne.
Yeah. That's great. All right, do we have anything else that we've missed? Any burning visions we've not had a chance to share? Yeah.
Coming in late.
That's
so I
fine, that's
apologize,
great.
but you might have even mentioned it, but I was just going along the community farm idea, the idea of growing your own food, and I would love more volunteer opportunities, hands-on volunteer opportunities. But I was thinking growing produce and donating it to those in need. So
Yeah.
I don't know if the farmers market. We're so lucky to have. Opportunities to buy our own produce here in town, but perhaps, growing it to donate it to those that can't. So
Yeah. I think that's
my
a
thought.
great idea.
I think there are models for community farms that do that. So
Definitely.
it's something.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. I love that idea.
On the plus side, there's not a lot of conflicts now, is there? I mean, in terms of ownership abutting it or anything, are there any? It seems like there's a lot of opportunity, whereas sometimes you go into meetings and there's a lot of problems.
Yeah.
More now it seems a discussion. More now it seems there's discussions of what's possible.
Exactly. I agree. I think that's a really great point, and I think that that's exactly why we have this meeting. I don't think we're trying to put out any fires as much as we're just trying to make sure that we come up with a plan that the entire community can really get behind.
And I think it's important to recognize that Mike has done a great job.
Yes, thank you for saying that.
Being such a good steward.
Yes, yeah,
Thanks,
that's great. I think that's really true.
So what are the next steps from here?
Wonderful question. So Martha and I, we're still really just in the analysis period of this project. So we've been doing a lot of work just doing layers and layers of different analysis, collecting information from you all, and then moving forward in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
2 weeks.
We're gonna start developing some very loose conceptual like alternatives, basically, a few different concepts that we'll be presenting, and then we'll be sending along to the town to review. We will have another meeting process in which people can see those and give us some input on those concepts. And then that will be at the end of May. And then moving towards the end of June will be when the term is wrapping up and we really are developing the final product that we'll be delivering to the town. Yeah, so we will, especially, we would love it if you would sign in or sign out before you leave with a piece of like some contact information, because especially those of you that joined us tonight, we would love to be able to reach out to you directly when we do have those alternatives developed so that we could have you be a part of that second round as well.
And we'll be posting on the town's social media when the preceding meetings will be taking place.
One of those meetings is out in Northampton.
Yeah, so we do have a formal presentation process, which is when we take those still very loose conceptual ideas and we present them at our school. That's on May 24th in Northampton. That will be with a panel of critics. It's usually with a designer, an ecologist, and like somebody else in the general planning or design field, in which we'll present those loose ideas. They'll give us some critique and some feedback, and we'll use that information to also help move the project forward. But in connection with that, we also will take that opportunity to bring them back to the community and get some feedback from you all.
Could you pipe that in through direct contact so people could watch the meeting, or is that a closed meeting?
Oh, that's a question. I don't know if we'll be able to, it's not a closed meeting. I don't know if you'll be able to watch it necessarily live, but we will have a video of it that we could send to the town easily.
Oh, that'd be great.
I would just urge you just to investigate if that could be done, and if it's a major problem, that's not.
Yeah, sure. No, that's a great point.
It will be great unto itself.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It's an especially good point because it's the Friday of Memorial Day.
Very controversial time.
Is anybody going to the Berkshires?
Well, that's
I don't have to go to the farmer's market, I can.
Yeah.
Northampton is one of the, it's a treasure of a place. So.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place, but it's quite a drive unless you're heading in that direction anyway. Yeah. But I thank you for thinking of that, because that's a good idea. And we do want all the opportunity we can get to just have people be involved all the way through. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to use a Conservation Commission meeting night, or if you want to do it as a separate meeting.
Oh, for the June?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at the calendar.
Yeah.
Okay.
It might make sense to keep it a separate meeting, just so we can really stay focused, because our agendas have, they can get crowded.
Right.
Yeah.
And
They've been long lately.
Yeah.
You two are both on a really tight schedule, which
Exactly.
is wonderful for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is quick. It's a quick turnaround.
What is, to the question of what the next steps are, I wonder if this is an opportunity to speak to the community preservation warrant article.
Yeah, please.
Oh.
You're more of an expert on it than I am.
So here she goes. Wasn't even ready for that. So the Conservation Commission did put forward an article for town meeting that the Community Preservation Committee did support to do while this is giving us the vision of how the different uses can work on the site, what we were looking for was a very professional engineer evaluation of the structural integrity of the different buildings on the site, and trying to anticipate the any future repairs that might be needed. And I don't know if you want to add to that, Wayne, because you've been helping out a great deal.
One of the reasons that we're asking for CPA funds is for some engineering analysis for some of the buildings, but more significantly, as a publicly owned property, it's subject to Chapter 149 public procurement laws and prevailing wage requirements. And we have learned with much difficulty from some past projects, both with the Affordable Housing Trust and with the Wheaton Farm Barn, that we need very carefully written, detailed plan specifications and scopes of work when we go out for public procurement. You want to factor in the prevailing wage costs and bundle the tasks with really clear scopes in sort of to fall below certain price cutoffs that make the public procurement actually easier and more financially feasible in the long run. And when you go out for public procurement, you have to take the lowest bid that is responsive to what you have asked for. So you have to make sure that you're asking for what you actually need. And it may seem that these are fairly simple buildings, but in reality you need a lot of detail in what you're asking for. If you don't ask for an underlayment for your roof, you're not going to get one. If you don't ask for a drip edge, you're not going to get one. And we have been burned by that in the past, and it can be very frustrating, but what we're looking for is the most financially effective way to get the needed work done. So that's a big component of what the ask is.
Great.
Yes. Great. All right. Well, do you guys have anything else you want to add to it, or no?
I don't think so. I think we'd love to collect your surveys. And if you need to get in touch with us or if you have any lingering ideas, Tufts Farm 2019 at csld.edu is how you can reach us.
So maybe we'll do a follow-up post, just
Yeah.
say,
That would be
hey, if
great.
anybody couldn't make
Yeah.
it to the meeting, you want to have some input,
And we actually
send it here and to the town.
Yeah, we're gonna make this, we're turning this survey into a Google survey, which the town will also post. So if you have family or friends or anybody else who might be interested in giving their feedback that couldn't be with us tonight, that will be available online.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming down again.
Thank you so much for coming.
Great so far.
Okay, thank you
And
so much.
thanks everyone for coming to the meeting tonight. We appreciate it.